E.
Trapped in a squalid no man's land, women and children are among the most desperate and the exhausted, sheltering from the cold nights and from the dreary violence that has pushed them into a grim limbo.
It was an unyielding sequence that would start at midnight. The ferocity of the violence dominating the tales from this troubled region. Daily, it mingled with them in their usual gatherings. Daily, it gathered in funerals. Tonight, we take you to the slice of heaven that is Matungu in Kakamega County, but that has also been a piece of hell for those living there.
Also tonight, the spring in Kenya's step after the heartbreak in Cairo. There was something to lift our spirits as the Kariobangi Sharks chewed on the toffees.
These are just some of the top stories tonight, among these others.
A sporting legend hangs his boots forever.
A great man, and then I know everybody anamjua, so tumeacha gap kubwa sana.
Joe Kadenge's death exposes the plight of our sporting heroes.
Plus, the rift in Jubilee Party is so clear, everybody knows.
The person who's handicapping Uhuru is Jubilee.
DP Ruto only wants a solution from within.
Anybody who values Jubilee Party will be responsible not to prosecute matters of our party in newspapers.
NTV Weekend Edition with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Trusting your weekend is coming along well. We have plenty to share with you tonight. David Agondoa is our sign language presenter. Legendary footballer Joe Kadenge hung up his football boots forever.
He suffered a stroke and died this morning at the Meridian Hospital in Nairobi, where he had been rushed after his health deteriorated.
He died at the age of 84. A number of leaders condoled with the family of a man who's left an indelible mark in the country's football history. NTV's Sharon Baranga reports.
At 11 a.m. at the Meridian Hospital in Nairobi, football legend Joe Kadenge drew his last breath. He was taken to hospital after his health worsened. He was 84 years old. At his home in Mariakani Estate in South B, friends gathered to mourn with the family.
Alikuwa a great man, and then I know everybody anamjua, so tumeacha gap kubwa sana.
Tulikuwa na hizi halafu miguu nacheza na kiatu kama hii.
Kadenge was ailing from diabetes. He also suffered a stroke.
He had a relapse and he was dashed to hospital, but unfortunately around 11 he took his last breath.
Born on 16th March in 1935, Joe Kadenge has been a household name for decades. Kadenge was better known as the Wizard of Dribbles and nicknamed East Africa's Stanley Matthews in the 80s, played for Maragoli United. In 1966, he played for Abaluya United, now known as AFC Leopards. A sublime talent, Kadenge was an attacking midfielder for AFC Leopards and Harambee Stars. In his heyday, he straddled the pitch like the proverbial colossus. The phrase, Kadenge na mpira was coined by commentators to hail his exploits in the pitch. President Uhuru Kenyatta, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and Nation Media Group's Chief Executive Officer Stephen Gitagama are among Kenyans mourning the football icon, describing him as a legend who employed his talent in the service of his country. The legendary footballer Joe Kadenge was famously known by the slogan, Kadenge na mpira. He was among the finest footballers the country has ever produced. In 1970, he stepped down as a player and went into full-time coaching.
We want Kadenge na mpira not to die the day that Joe dies. We want it to continue.
2 years ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta visited Kadenge at his home and gave him 2 million shillings. He also directed that Kadenge be insured by the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF. Kadenge, who was a fan of Manchester United, was once sponsored to go watch one of their games, and a special film about him was made. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
In his final years, many fundraisers were organized to ensure that the late Kadenge received treatment. His life exemplifies what many Kenyan sports people have to go through, especially after retirement.
President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive to set up a Heroes Kitty is one of the many attempts by government to improve the lives of sports people in the country, but is yet to be realized. Seth Olale with the plight facing our sports people who have ended up on the lonely path of neglect.
Once the final whistle is blown and fans empty the stadium, the players are on their own. More so when they hang their boots. The late Joe Kadenge's life typifies exactly that.
They have done something for the nation, and they should be looked after, be given some help, whatever they can.
Most of them actually come from very humble backgrounds.
Kenya sports heroes and heroines known for the medals have ended up with a begging bowl. Former Harambee Stars striker Henry Motego worked as a casual laborer in various construction sites in Kisumu. Peter Dawo, a former Kenya international and Gor Mahia striker, at some point appealed to well-wishers to help him out sort his medical bills.
You are taken for a drink, for food and whatever. If you are given some allowances, will be very little money, and we still suffered.
Conjestina Acheng, a former boxing icon, has also been languishing in misery. Popular performing artists in the arts and culture industry have also been neglected and seemingly only remembered at death. Poor management of sports federations, lack of proper welfare structures, and lack of political goodwill are among the factors that have contributed to the poor state of national heroes in the country. While visiting the late Kadenge at his house in 2017, President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the then Sports and Culture Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario to put up a Heroes Council that would, among other things, provide medical cards to all national heroes, pay a monthly stipend, and provide housing to them. That remains a declaration.
And all these people must be recognized in a very structured way.
A number of European countries such as Germany and England have a mechanism whereby players save a percentage of their earnings for pension. Kenyan government and sports federations are, however, yet to set such structures. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
Joe Kadenge, what a legend. What do you remember of Joe Kadenge?
Who was referenced in Sharon's story? Kadenge na mpira, Kadenge na mpira.
Oh, yes. The famous Lennon Mambompatela used to call him Kadenge na mpira, coined that
yes.
phrase. I remember his last wish to meet the head of state. This was when he said that he wanted to meet the head of state before meeting his maker, and President Uhuru Kenyatta and the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta paid him a visit at his South B home, and he gifted them with 2 jerseys, his famous number 7 jersey, and quite a humble man. May his soul rest in peace. Kenya prides itself as a sporting powerhouse, but many of the elite sportsmen end up on the lonely paths of destitution.
Have we as a country been treating them right? We sought your views on this, and here are some of your responses.
One, they're treated very well. Where we are right now, we are working so hard to make sure they get what they deserve.
Mimi upande wa futa naweza sema bado hajatreatiwa venye sisi tunataka.
Hakuna support. Hakuna support. Hakuna support.
Till somehow they have been neglected.
Tumekuwa tukiona tu kama naona shughuli, hawashughuliki.
Nyingi sana wale legends wetu waliotangulia hawajakuwa wakitunukiwa heshima yoyote.
Tumesahau, kizazi hiki kimesahau wale wazee. Akiwakumbuki kamwe.
Heroes wakiwa hai hakuna mtu anawajali. Tu akishaaga ndio unaona wanaanza kumfuatilia sana wakisema alikuwa hero.
Government has not done enough to honor our heroes in this country.
Something like head of state commendation, it's given to people who really don't deserve.
From the deaths of Rudisha Senior and Nyantika in athletics to legendary Joe Kadenge in football, it seems to be the same script but different casts, begging the question, does Kenya treat its sport heroes deservedly? Befin Okoth, NTV.
Now for a bit of politics, Deputy President William Ruto has called on Jubilee leaders to use internal party structures to resolve deep-seated issues afflicting the party instead of airing dirty linen in public. The DP, who spoke in Eldama Ravine, said those prosecuting the party's issues in public and in the media were derailing their mission of uniting Kenyans.
In the meantime, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, who also weighed in on the divisions eating away at the Jubilee Party, said the two warring sides have taken the president hostage. Listen in.
Najua wewe na rais mlikubaliana tuache siasa mpaka 2022. Sio makosa ya hawa, ni hawa raia. Ukikosa kusema 2022 leo na kesho kutwa unakwenda nyumbani. So utusamee, hata ukipata rais mwambie atusamee. Sisi pia tunachunga kura.
Umeona shida yenye tumekuwa nayo kwa chama cha Jubilee, serikali yetu, watu kuleta siasa za migawanyiko. The politics of division. There are those who want to take us to the politics of ethnic balkanization. Ya kuwa tujikusanye kama Wakikuyu, wengine wajikusanye kama kabila fulani, na wengine kama kabila yao. Turudi kwa siasa za miaka ya kale, siasa za migawanyiko.
Anybody who values this country, anybody who values Jubilee Party and the unity that it stands for and the transformation that upon which Jubilee was built will be responsible not to prosecute matters of our party in newspapers on the basis of rumors, on the basis of falsehood, on the basis of propaganda. They should be responsible enough to bring those issues to party structures. Then we can handle those issues and work on the party going into the future.
The person who's handcuffing Uhuru is Jubilee. Because Jubilee has brought Kieleweke and Jubilee has brought Tanga. And then in the process, they have handcuffed Uhuru so that Uhuru is not able to deliver what he has to deliver.
A day after Nyeri County Commissioner issued a warning to politicians who are believed to associate with outlawed criminal groups, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri also hit out at politicians using the youth to further their interests.
He was responding to this incident about a week ago in Gatitu, Nyeri County, when rowdy youth stormed the venue of a public meeting he was in, forcing the CS to make a very hurried speech before leaving the scene. Nyeri MP Ngunjiri Wambugu had arrived at the meeting minutes later, accompanied by youth chanting Kieleweke slogans.
The CS was been at the crossroads amid pressure to support President Uhuru Kenyatta, while angling himself to be deputy president man in the next general election, said the use of youth to cause chaos could signal the return of outlawed groups such as the Mungiki.
Itakuwa ni kazi bure ikiwa mkutano wa waziri itakuwa interrupted. Mkutano ya mtu yule mwingine wowote itaweza kuwa interrupted na hakuna sheria inachukuliwa dhidi ya mtu kama huyo. Hatutakosa kusema na tutarudia leo, kesho kutwa na mpaka mtondogoo. Ndio haya maneno yaweze kueleweka na maafisa wale ambao wanafanya ile kazi.
Sikuwa Nyeri kama Mwangi Kiunjuri. I was in Nyeri as Minister of Government. If a minister of government can be attacked, that means directly the government was attacked. So important that we understand whatever is happening today might resort to other bigger things. We had days here in Mount Kenya when we could not sleep because of organized youth. Organized youth who are desperate and can be used against other people.
Today, the country marks 29 years since the first Saba Saba rally at the Kamkunji grounds in Nairobi. The event, however, lacked the fervor that has been synonymous to the date where the country was once on the threshold of a revolution.
A group of human rights activists and civil society players organized a protest to demand the end of extrajudicial killings. Another group also met to analyze the strides made in the implementation of the 2010 constitution amid a rallying call for a referendum. Zainab Ismail reports.
On this exact date, 29 years ago, Kenya experienced a momentous political development in these very grounds that saw the country shape its current political scene and lay a strong foundation to the 2010 constitution.
Today, young activists and human rights defenders from the slums marched to the grounds to demand an end to the alleged killings of young people in their neighborhoods. The group, made up of civil societies and victims of police brutality, was drawn from Mathare, Dandora, Kayole, Kamukunji and Githurai.
We are here because we are tired of the statistics and the stories and the burials that we have to do of young men and women who are being shot and who are being killed.
We are saying we have had enough. Our youth are being killed, and instead of dealing with the issue of crime and coming to the root cause of it, wanaenda kuwa youth wetu juu wameshindwa kuwapea jobs.
The day was without the politics and politicians traditionally associated with the movement and who used to play the central role in the event. In Limuru, members of the Saba Saba movement, drawn from the academia and the civil society, met to take stock of their achievements against the backdrop of concerns that the day's significance has been on the wane. The agenda of the meeting, to reflect on the achievements of the constitution that was promulgated in 2010 amid the widening differences on whether it should be amended. They argue that political leaders have failed to implement the constitution and now want to use it to accommodate their own power struggle.
We are watching and seeing the debate, discourse arising about the need to change the constitution. So we said we should take this occasion to come and reflect ourselves, take stock and ask ourselves, is the constitution really the problem? And what are the implications of opening up the constitution?
What's happening is not a failure of the constitution, but a failure of those in power to implement the constitution.
Broadly, the country has undergone tremendous changes in the past 3 decades. However, the revolution seems to have stalled. The civil society says the malpractices the reformists fought against continue to flourish, top on that list being corruption. In Kenya, Saba Saba was used as the beginning of open defiance against the Moi government to give room to democratic reforms. The government ruthlessly crushed the demonstrations. Hundreds of civilians were killed or injured, while thousands more faced charges in court, including all the leaders. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Just days after diplomatic ties between Kenya and Tanzania roiled, with the neighbor to the south threatening to take diplomatic action over remarks made by Starehe MP Charles Njagua about foreign investors, President Uhuru Kenyatta made a private visit to Tanzania, perhaps to thaw the ice.
And it was a full-scale charm offensive in a bid to bring Magufuli closer. Charity Mwangi takes a look at the blooming presidential bromance that also sparked hope for the next date.
When it comes to Kenya's relations with her neighbor to the south, it's always been a case of smiling behind the fence but never climbing over. Ties with Tanzania have never really been warm, but President Kenyatta, who was on Friday meant to make a quick visit to Tanzania, ended up spending the night after such an incredible reception. It was laughter and camaraderie as both leaders turned on the charm. Their mien revealing little of the tension that have bellied the bond between the two neighbors.
Jirani ni yule Mungu alikupatia.
lakini hakuna kitu ya furaha kama kuwa una jirani umechaguliwa na Mwenyezi Mungu, lakini pia huyo jirani ni rafiki.
Tunazungumza lugha moja na tamaduni zetu pia zinafanana. Kwa Watanzania wengi, Kenya ni nyumbani. Na vivyo hivyo kwa Wakenya hapa Tanzania ni nyumbani. Sidhani kama kuna mkoa wowote wa Tanzania ambako hakuna Wakenya.
It was a show of unity in deeds and words.
Kenya ikitajirika, Tanzania imetajirika. Tanzania ikitajirika, Kenya imetajirika.
And the bromance spilled over from the diplomatic to the personal. A moment captioned by the president's visit to Magufuli's ailing mother. A gentle hand squeeze that was perhaps symbolic of a newfound friendship, and captioned by a prayer whispered in supplication for the mother and in the hope that it will heal relations between the two countries. And as a parting gift,
na alipoingia tu kwenye nyumba mle, Tausi akakimbia pale nje akasimama. Akasema najua hawa Tausi wananipenda mimi kwa sababu ni rais. Na mimi nikajua hii ni njia mojawapo ya kuniomba. Kwa kweli nimeguswa, sijawahi kugawa Tausi kwenye nchi yoyote. Lakini kwa heshima kubwa na mahusiano makubwa yaliyopo kati ya Tanzania na Kenya, nimekubali, na hili nataka kulisema, najua watu wataandika sana, lakini hili limenigusa kutoka moyoni. Nitatoa Tausi 4. Watapelekwa Kenya kwa Mheshimiwa Kenyatta. Na nina uhakika baada ya miaka kadhaa watazaa. Watakapozaa wale wana atanirudishia.
If these words are any measure, then there's perhaps hope for a second date. Both countries now taking a step back, opting for friendship in the hope of salvaging the cooperation dream. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
No, ever since I read about this story, do you know I've had an earworm?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this song?
Which song is that?
Tausi ndege wangu, ndege wangu wa fahari.
No, I don't know the next line. Let me stick to anchoring news. I'm not a good singer. I only sing in the bathroom. But I think Magufuli has extended also an invitation for Uhuru-san to, go marry in Tanzania. So there's a lot going there. But the man is full of wisdom. He said, I'll give you the Tausi 4, wakiza utanirudishia. That's wisdom right there.
It is.
To keep the relationship going.
And on that note, we take a break. But coming up is our special feature on Matungu.
Looking for a property in a serene and calm environment? Look no further, because soil
action. They are swift and brutal, creeping in the darkness like ghosts. The gangs, whose tools of trade are an assortment of crude weapons, have turned the villages in Matungu into their killing fields in an unrelenting campaign of brutality that lasted days. More than 20 people, including unborn children, were taken when death visited them in the community where they lived and loved.
A security operation to bring peace to the troubled spots comes to an end this month, but there are still questions on the causes and motivations behind the reign of terror. Drawing on the testimonies of the ones who survived the carnage, tonight NTV's Brenda Wanga takes a journey through the killing fields of Matungu and the scars the killing fields left behind.
Matungu, a quiet community where people have been going about their daily activities undisturbed. But that changed in the first half of this year.
Maisha yangu imebadilika, hata na nikikaa sijuoni kama mtu kwenye nimekaa vizuri.
It is now a place touched by evil.
Tuko afraid too.
The monster that is insecurity came to the villages and into the homes.
Mauaji haya yamezidi katika eneo hili.
Tafadhali tunaumia.
And when it left, graves had sprouted where families thrived.
Bado naishi na hofu kwa sababu wako.
The graves as fresh as the memories of what has been the worst bout of insecurity in an area well known for its quiet. Life as they knew it was shattered. The deaths thrust the erstwhile peaceful community into a collection of frightened people now nursing scars that will perhaps last a lifetime. Patched in the homes they've painstakingly built, the birds call to each other, their voices joining in a song that brings cheer. But that cheer is lost on the occupants of this home in Matungu, Kakamega County. For the last 4 months, the family of Mzee Saidi Kongani has been living under a heavy cloud of grief and sorrow. Their once vibrant home, now a pale shadow of its former self. In line with traditions here, a door stays open during the day. It is their way of mourning the late Yusuf Shiundu and his late wife Shiro Wanjiru. 28th of March 2019 was the last time they saw the young couple alive. Aged 30 years old, had finished his day's chores. He was a businessman and a farmer, according to his parents. The break of dawn brought with it a season of mourning and despair. The deceased young brother was the first to stumble upon his brother's murdered and mutilated body.
Sasa huyo kijana vile alifika hapo na akaona watu wamesimama penye walikuwa wamemtupa kwa taraja. Sasa naye akakimbia na pikipiki akaenda hapo akapata ni huyu kijana ambaye ni ndugu yake ambaye ameuliwa. Mwisho alafu akarudi na akakutana na mimi kama ninaenda shamba kulima. Ilikuwa kitu saa 12:30 asubuhi. Sasa akaniambia, baba, una habari? Sina habari. Huyu ambaye vile unaona watu wamesimama kwa taraja hapo, ndugu yangu Yusuf Shiundu ndio ameuliwa, ametupwa hapo. Nikawacha chembe na panga nikakimbia pale kwa taraja, nikapata kweli ni huyu mtoto ndiye alikuwa ameuliwa vibaya sana.
Unknown to them, an even grimmer situation awaited them at home, right inside Yusuf's house.
Huyu kijana pia naye vile alimpata huyo ndugu yake ameuliwa hapo kwa taraja, akakimbia kurudi kujulisha huko watu wameua Shiundu, yuko hapo. Sasa naye akapita tu akasema waje nijulishe bibi yake kwanza, alafu ndio nijulishe wasasi. Vile alikuja kwa nyumba yao, akakuta tayari bibi yake amefanya nini? Ameuliwa tena, amelazwa hapo kwa sakafu ya nyumba. Bibi yake alikuwa tayari wamemrape.
The fatalities that night could have been higher. Saumu Wanga was once married to Yusuf. They have a child together. She left the marriage to pursue her education, but still maintained ties with the deceased family as they took care of her education needs. On that fateful night, she was at home, a stone throw away from here. She received a call.
Ati nitoke nje. Vile nipigiwa nitoke nje, nikamuuliza ni nani, akaniambia ni Abu. So kaniambia usijue sana, what I need ni utoke nje, nataka kuona. Okay, siku decide kutoka nje. So niliona kulikuwa na dirisha, nikasema instead ya kutoka nje acha nione kwa dirisha ni nani huyo anataka kuniona. Nikaangalia kwa dirisha ni mmoja au wawili, nikamwona ni mmoja. Sasa tuko kwa barabara, nikaona gari inakuja. Gari venye ilikuja, lights za gari kamulika, nikamwona ndio ni mtu mmoja. Lakini venye aliona gari, unajua ilikuwa usiku kitu saa 7 hivi. Kwa saa 7 saa 6. Sasa venye aliona gari, ikawa pia maybe ilikuwa Land Rover, ajifiche juu. Ni risk pia kutembea usiku. Sasa venye alijificha, nikaelewa tu maybe anajificha saizi Land Rover wanatembea wakipatrol mapolisi, it's okay. Sasa kidogo hivyo tena hiyo gari ikafika mbele. Nikaona wengine wawili wanakimbilia, kuna msituni hapo karibu na kwetu, msitu. Wakaingilia hiyo njia ya msitu. Sasa nikasema hapana, hapa ni kubaya. Na niambia kwa mmoja, na sasa sikujua kama walikuwa nao.
That intuition saved her life, as her family believes whoever murdered Yusuf and his wife was out to inflict even more pain. In hushed tones, residents of the area say the murder was well calculated and targeted, evidenced perhaps by the veracity of the attack and how badly mutilated the bodies were. While the motive of the killings remain a mystery, at least officially, on the ground, talks of a deal gone sour reverberate in the villages and the shopping center. According to the family, he was a hard-working young man whose relative success was attributed to his hard work ethic, but that has done little to silence an alternative narrative.
Kwa anapiga matofali na anauza, vingine anafanyia shughuli zake na zingine anatusaidia.
Sikumuona kama ni mtu mwenye kuenda nje alafu abebeko vitu za mtu akuja naza hapa, sijawahi kuonako.
His former wife hinted that he may have acquired his cash through less than honest ways.
Unajua fununu za watu, sijui alikuwa mkono mrefu. But mimi sikuwa naona. Mimi kwangu mimi nilikuwa namuona tu kazi yake ilikuwa kuchota mafuta. Kwenda kule buka suku Mumias Sugar huko hivyo na kuongojea zile na kuchota mafuta na kuuza hizo mafuta za diesel peke yake. But sikumuona kwa njia nyingine zenye watu walikuwa wanaongea, sijui alikuwa nini.
There are those who believe that this was why he was murdered. The motive and perpetrators of that attack that robbed this family of its breadwinners are yet to be fully established, the family only calling for the government to speed up investigations and bring their son and his wife's killers to book. The scars of this violence are deep-seated, physical and present in the village. In another fresh grave, right in front of his parents' house, lie the remains of Rashid Odongo. He was the only son of Mama Respandeta. At 19 years of age, he had already started preparing for the big exam 2 years away. It was a task he undertook with zeal.
Ilikuwa 27 vile tuliachana na yeye jioni. Akatoka akaenda studies pale, alikuwa na study na mwenzake. Na wakati huo vile nilikaa kwa muda kufika saa 3, Sharifa alikuwa hajaingia. Na kila siku alikuwa anatoka hivyo anaenda na anarudi. Ikifika saa 3 Sharifa ako kwa nyumba. Na siku hiyo Sharifa hakuonekana.
They say a mother's instinct is never wrong, and for Rispa that night, she wished it was.
Nilikuwa kwa nyumba usiku kucha lakini sikulala. Wakati ilifika saa 10, Sharifa aliniletea ndoto mwenyewe. Akaniambia, mama, umelala? Mimi nikamwambia yeye. Akaniambia nimekatwa mguu. Saa hiyo niliamuka na nilikuwa kwa nyumba peke yangu na wajukuu wangu wawili wadogo sana. Nilishindwa la kufanya, nikaenda hata kwa rumu yake, sikupata Sharifu. Sasa nilivumilia hapo kwa nyumba ikiwa nimeshindwa mtoto wangu ako wapi. Muda kidogo, karibu kama saa 12 asubuhi, saa 11 nikatoka nje, nikasikia kwenda choo.
The toilet is right at the front of her house and right next to it, a road.
Nilitokezea tu hapo kwa sababu alikuwa amevaa sweta ya pink na alilala kifutifuti, mkono alishika hapa na kichwa ilikuwa hapo, damu ilikuwa imetiririka hivi. Na hii mkono alikuwa ameweka hivi na hiyo upande huu ndio ilikuwa amedungwa. Kwa sababu kichwa alilalisha tu hivi kidogo.
Reports indicate that Sharif was in the company of a girl at the time of his attack.
Msichana ni kama alikatwa tu hapa kwa uso. Sijui ni panga moja sijui, lakini hiyo ndio alama niliona. Kama amewekewa nini ya plasta ya hospitali. Sasa mimi nilikuwa nataka kama wazazi wa msichana wangekuwa watu wazuri. Wakati tulimaliza hii harakati, kwa sababu mambo kama hiyo huwezi simamisha huyo msichana aongee mbele ya watu. Si watamuinda tayari. Sasa nilikuwa nataka wakae vile mambo ilikuwa imetulia, tushasika Sarifu, wakuje tuongee tujue huyu anaweza kuwatambua. Kwa sababu si alikuwa.
The family laments that the government has done little to try and unravel the killing that was amongst the first to happen in the period of insecurity that held this community in a fearsome grip for months.
Tujaona mtu yote akiongea kumhusu serikali ambayo tuliandika maneno ama tukaitisha usaidizi kutoka kwake, hatujaona. Na tumeishi na uchungu na huzuni.
Rispa is yet to accept that her only son is gone forever. His absence, she says, manifests itself on a daily basis around the home.
Unajua saa hii Sharifa angekuwa kwa sababu si wako kwafti. Angekuwa hapa. Hata hiyo nyasi yeye ndiye angekuwa ameenda kukata. Imagine natafuta mtu wa kwenda kukata na hao wanafurahia wanakaa na watoto yao. Mtu akiniambia ni huyu nafikiria nitamwacha.
And the answer to that question lies in the conclusion of investigations that the families say are dragging on indefinitely, even as the government insists that they are on track. The worst of the killings perhaps happened towards the tail end of that reign of terror in this sub-county. May 16th, 2019 in Sayangwa village, about a 20-minute drive from Mumias town, a man sat in the midst of hundreds of mourners who had thronged his compound to help him bid farewell to over half of his family. The hymns resounding around him, but none sinking into his subconscious. The religious melodies were meant to soothe him, but he seemed lost, nearly unaware. His gaze firmly fixed on the caskets neatly laid out. Inside them, the remains of his wife, his 4-year-old daughter, and an unborn baby. A month later, we meet him at his home. He's been slowly undertaking the fraught, painful business of reckoning with his new reality. The attack robbed him of so much more than just money. Stephen Rapachi knows just how lucky he is to be taking those shaky steps. He knows only too well that his could have been the fourth grave here. It all started when he took a second wife at the insistence of his first.
Sasa hiyo mama akasema badala kwenda kutafuta bibi nyingine kutoka mbali wapi, wacha nikwende kuletea mko wangu, mkisikizana muishi na yeye.
That plan worked out well, but not to the liking of his first wife. The second wife quickly gave birth to 3 children and was expectant with the couple's fourth.
Walikuwa wasikizana na yeye sasa huyo. Imbalika, tumesema imbalika uchungu. Sasa huyu nimeleta tena anataka kutahala hapa. Na hii mtu alikuwa sasa kufa hivyo nini, sasa maneno mengi imeingililia hapo. Sasa shida ni huyo mama mwenyewe ndiye ameleta, lakini mimi si nilikuwa sina hasira.
That jealousy allegedly took a dark, twisted and deadly turn when Rapacha decided to upgrade the house his second wife lived in. He sold a piece of his land for 50,000 shillings. The proceeds were meant to begin the construction of the second wife's house.
Mama mkubwa kwa hiyo pesa nilimpatia 10,000. Na hao watu kujua niko na pesa ni mama ule. Mama ule aliongea kwa hiyo maneno ya pesa hii.
According to relatives, the first wife wasn't impressed by the token and arranged an attack that devastated this homestead.
Mwendo wa saa 4 nilikuwa nimeshalala. Kaona watu wanagonga mlango, nikasema hapana, wagonga mlango ni nani? Kwenda kufungua na wanaingia speed safari moja. Sasa kiti waliingia kunishika, nikuanza kunichapa kofi 3 ile mzito sana mpaka nikachanganyikiwa akili. Sasa wanilishika vile wameshaingia wote, nikuanza kufanya nini? Kuniuliza pesa. Mzee, tupe pesa. Mimi nawaambia sina pesa. Niliwaambia mara 3. Mara 4 wakasema kama mzee anasema hana pesa, tufanye nini? Si kumtoa. Sasa kutoa hivyo ndio kanaanza kunichapa ile kabisa, kuonyesha kwamba wanamaliza. Kweli wananigonga mpaka wakaachana naye, wakati huo mzee wetu tumemalizana naye.
They then went after his family and killed 2 of them.
Mzee Rapachi was only informed of the demise of his wife, his daughter, and their unborn child 2 weeks after the attack that also left him nursing serious injuries.
His wounds are slowly healing, the physical ones at least. The emotional ones, and particularly the void left by the deaths of the 3, are hard to erase. Equally hard to forget is the lack of progress in the investigation and prosecution of those responsible for not just the massacre in this family, but of 17 other victims of the killings in Matungu. The pace of serving justice has seemed glacial. At the onset, the killings had been blamed on an infamous gang christened the 42 Brothers. Crude weapons, machetes and knives being their preferred choice, the gang is said to have struck mercilessly, ruthlessly.
Ilikuwa imekatakatwa tu huwezi kujua ni mwanadamu. Imekatwa tena wamerarua kwa tumbo, wamempiga makizi wakirarua, wamemkata kwa kichwa, wamemkata kwa shingo nyuma. Ni damu tu.
Kwa amedungwa kwa karibu na jicho. Sasa hiyo kisu nafikiria ilitoboa kichwa na ikafika paka kwa shavu lake.
The consistent thread in the attacks, the use of knives to inflict as much damage as possible. The security agents, however, say these cases are isolated. According to the police, the deaths of 2 teenagers, including Sharif, were revenge murders.
They are not all related in terms of the causes. In fact, 6 of them were caused by, were actually through mob injustice. 6 of them. And that of course happened as a reaction. Wananchi reacted to the other deaths that had happened. One of some are, you know, some we could say are robbery related. Others are related to rivalry. But again, the causes are subject to investigation.
They are, however, not ruling out the possibility of the existence of gangs for hire.
Do you have gangs in Matungu?
Not really, not organized gangs as per se, but yes.
Tell me I'm arrested over what?
In the wake of the attacks, several politicians were arrested in connection with insecurity in the county. They were later released without charge.
I cannot go with armed policemen.
A security operation has been ongoing there for the last 3 months, and residents say, while the situation is improving, bringing about the bittersweet prospects of some healing, the best days are still too far off.
Lakini usalama wenyewe haujahakikishiwa wananchi. Manake wakitoka ama wakiondoka wakati wowote, hatuna uhakika kwamba tutabaki tukiwa salama. Mtu atembea afanye biashara yake, arudi labda jioni baada ya kutoka kwa soko, mama mboga arudi kwa nyumba yake, labda kitu saa 1 saa 2, haijajulikana wazi kwamba kutahakikishwa na usalama.
The boots that have been on the ground for a month to keep the peace will leave soon, and leaving behind communities, families who have endured an unremitting horror that they may never fully recover from. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
The hashtag is Scars of Matungu. We've already gotten a few comments. Kabarak's Finest says, I can imagine those barbaric creatures that are bringing untold suffering to families. It makes me wonder what is at the root cause of such a grimy atmosphere. My heart bleeds for them. Maranga Mangi says it is so sad that a section of Kenyans can turn on their fellow Kenyans and kill or hurt them. This is not good, and if some political leaders are involved, may God expose them and let them be brought to justice. Governor 254 says violence is a disease that corrupts all who use it regardless of the cause. And Micheka Enoch says the killings are horrifying. The government should at least do something to offer justice to the affected families. Have your say. The hashtag, as I said, is Scars of Matungu. You can reach us using the handles at NTV Kenya, at Burrows, at Dennis Okari. You can also text us using the toll-free number 20686. Over to you, Dennis.
Oh, thank you very much, Olive. The death of ex-Safaricom chief Bob Collymore once more stirred the nation into a debate on what can be done to ease the country's cancer burden. The disease is responsible for nearly 27,000 deaths in the country every year. With proper treatment, patients can live longer, but the burden of treatment is heavier on families merely scraping by. The odds of survival are heavily stacked against them. NTV's Halima Gongo reports on the hefty and unyielding cancer burden.
Margaret Mutono takes wobbly steps, assisted by her husband, to get outside for a chance at fresh air outside her home in the village of Mala in Matungulu, Machakos County. For 15 years, she struggled with breast cancer. The signs of her frailty embellished on her face. But her even bigger struggle has been to marshal enough resources to get treatment.
Nilianza nini kama kishiringi. Ile shiringi inakuanga. Na kikaanza kukula kama shiringi. Sasa hapa mwisho bakakuja bakatoka kangozi. Bakambaki toshimo tutatu. Sasa nikaona ni kitu inapoa.
Her husband is all she has. He helps around the house and tends to the tumor on her left breast.
Sasa ile huyo msichana hajakuja, naambianga huyo anioshe hata miguu. Kwanza kuosha miguu kwa kuinama hivi ni shida. Mimi hakuna kazi naweza jifanyia. Ukikataa kupika, inakaa hivyo tunalala.
The husband is the family's sole breadwinner, taking care of them and still barely covering all their needs. All her 8 children, she says, deserted her.
Kwanza wakati walisikia niko na kansa wacha huyu, wale wengine wote waliepa sababu aliamka kansa inashikanisha yangu. Nikienda hapo mtabeba hiyo ugonjwa.
Mutono has been doing odd jobs to at least make end meet, but she's been channeling all her income towards her treatment. Doctors have advised her to seek treatment at the Kenya-Tanzania Hospital, the country's largest referral hospital. But her finances, already precarious, have fallen apart entirely.
Siaienda Kenyatta hata sijui ni pande gani.
Mutono for now is living off antibiotics in the hope she'll get better. But she mirrors the plight of many families bogged down and drained financially by cancer. On average, a cancer patient can spend in excess of 1 million shillings in supportive and rehabilitative care and further investigations within treatment. According to statistics, there are 40,000 new cases of cancers every year, with more than 27,000 cancer-related deaths every year. At least one person is diagnosed with cancer every day and 10 people every week. The leading cancers in women are breast and cervical cancers. Among men, cervical cancers are among the most prominent. Some 10,000 people travel abroad every year to seek treatment. Out of this number, a staggering 70% are cancer patients. Halima Gongo, NTV.
We take a short break. We'll be back with more local stories, including what's happening further afield. Stay with us.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me.
Welcome back. You're watching NTV Weekend Edition. To news further afield, African leaders met today to launch a continental free trade zone that, if successful, would unite 1.3 billion people, creating a $3.4 trillion economic bloc and usher in a new era of development. The agreement to form a 55-nation trade bloc was reached in March, paving the way for this week's AU summit in Niger, where attendees will unveil which nation will host the trade zone's headquarters, when trading will start, and how exactly it will work. It is hoped that the free trade area will help unlock Africa's long-stymied economic potential.
In Sudan, there's no more violence, no more bloodshed. Instead, Sudanese military leaders and civilian opposition protesters have agreed upon a compromise, a roadmap for the political future of the country, and one that will, at least initially, avert the threat of further escalation of the conflict. What will take shape is a form of power sharing at the highest level. A transitional council is to determine the country's fate in the coming years. Its composition will be largely balanced between leaders from the military and the civilian protest movement, with each side sending 5 representatives. For now, the battle over Sudan's future will take place in the transitional council, but both sides do have external backup battalions, in quotes, to call on if necessary.
And in Hong Kong, fresh political violence broke out this evening as riot police armed with batons charged at protesters in a bid to disperse them. Protesters used umbrellas to defend themselves from the charge in the district of Mong Kok, which began after a tense 20-minute standoff.
It was not immediately clear what prompted the charge by officers, but the renewed scenes of chaos on the city's streets marred a day that witnessed another huge, peaceful anti-government protest. The territory has seen multiple protests during the past month over a controversial extradition bill proposed by the government. The bill was suspended after a number of large protests. However, demonstrators are calling for it to be scrapped completely and demanding an investigation into alleged police brutality.
Instant intel and fast forward coming up on the other side of this break.
When the spirit of that magical
now for my favorite part of every weekend edition, and that is Instant Intel. Finland this week held their annual wife carrying competition. Clad in costumes that included a Batman and a Superman suit, dozens of men leapt over timber and waded through waist-high water with their wives on their backs. A Lithuanian couple defended their title and claimed the prize, which is the wife's weight in beer.
Very, very interesting there. In line with our unconventional competitions theme this weekend, sheep shearing is treated as a competitive sport, and the participants approach it just like any other professional sport. On Thursday this week, sheep shearing experts flocked a small town in the French countryside for the annual World Championship. More than 320 competitors from 34 countries as far apart as Norway, Japan and the Cook Islands battled it out to win titles in wool handling, machine shearing and blade shearing, a traditional method using scissors.
Before we move on from the sheep and on to bulls, have there been pastoralists who've brought their cows to graze at the Huru Park?
Taita Taveta Governor Granton Samboja is expected to honor summons from the DCI in relation to the long-standing conflict between residents of the county and livestock herders. He will appear tomorrow. The DCI is also considering charging State House Digital Director Dennis Itumbi with treason as the probe into Deputy President William Ruto's assassination plot enters a crucial stage. Dennis Itumbi returns to court formally to take plea on Wednesday. President Uhuru Kenyatta will tomorrow preside over the commissioning of the Bandari Maritime Academy at Kilindini Port in Mombasa County. The academy will provide advanced education and training leading to diplomas and certificates. African leaders are meeting in Niger for the African Union Summit, and today the heads of state signed a landmark free trade agreement, and for the next 2 days the leaders will discuss security and migration issues affecting the continent. On that note, let's take a short break. We'll be back, and Ida Oringa will be here with the sports news. Stay with us.
A very good evening to you and welcome to NTV Sport. I'm Ida Oringa. Let's get right into it, where Kenyan Premier League club Kariobangi Sharks made history after a 4-3 win over English Premier League side Everton on post-match penalties. The two teams settled for a 1-1 draw at full time, but the hosts had drawn first blood in the 27th minute through Duke Abuya before Joe Williams smashed in an equalizer in the second half. During the post-match penalty shootout, Sharks goalkeeper Brian Burrows saved 2 spot kicks and converted one for a sweet victory, which the Kenyan players celebrated wildly. The Sport Pesa Cup winners appeared unfazed by the international stars in attendance, including England international Theo Walcott, as they played in front of a packed to capacity Kasarani Stadium. Let's shift gears now, literally, where Baldev Chagar and Ravi Soni won a dramatic safari rally after longtime leader Manveer Barian got stuck in the final stage to drop to 3rd overall. Carl Flash Tundo took advantage of Barian's misfortune to finish 2nd. Attention now shifts to the event being promoted to WRC status. Sean Cardivelis reports from Naivasha.
It turned out to be one of the most dramatic safari rallies of all time. The long-time leader Manveer Barian getting bogged down in the final stage. And it was these two that took victory in the 2019 safari rally as it looks forward to getting back into the WRC in 2020. How does it feel after so long to win the safari rally?
It's been a fantastic, well, the feeling is fantastic. It's just still sinking in.
It feels absolutely awesome. I mean, you know, we've been trying so hard. Last year we came 2nd. We've always been close to winning the safari ever since 2014, but we've had some mishaps, and today everything just worked well in our favor.
We are waiting for the good news soon so that we can go back to our original safari rally.
And in the end, Carl Flash Tundo finished 2nd. He got stuck in the river on Saturday and ended up losing some time. He ended up finishing 2nd with Tim Jessup. And in 3rd place, it was Manveer Barian and Drew Starricker. He did look a little bit disappointed, but I'm sure he will be back. So now we await the report from the FIA, of course, the WRC promoters here, to see whether we can return. And we should hear very, very soon as to the fate of the safari rally. Sean Cardivelis, NTV in Naivasha.
Thanks for that, Sean Cardivelis. Now let's move on to Mate's Africa Cup of Nations, where the drama continues. This time, Madagascar beating a DR Congo to advance to their first quarter-final, coming after a... final between Brazil and Peru is set to kick off in just about 45 minutes. Let's move on to some sober news that we had covered earlier. And tonight we pay tribute to the dribble wizard Joe Kadenge, who passed away after a long bout of illness. We'll look at the numerous dazzling Daily Nation headlines that Kadenge Nampira made in his heyday. Rest well, Mzee. So many headlines, so many goals, so many moments. Rest in peace to Joe Kadenge, and condolences from the Nation Media Group to his family and friends. We do end it on that very somber note. My name is Ida Waringa. I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. with more sports, including what was quite a thrilling 3-2, I will say 2-0 win, however, between the FIFA Women's World Cup, USA and Netherlands. So much more on that tomorrow. See you then. It's back to Olive and Dennis.
That's it for this edition of NTV Weekend Edition. My name is Olive Burrows.
I'm Dennis Okari. We'll see you again tomorrow. David Agondoa is our sign language interpreter. Have a good night.